my veins. Blue and one eye, white and blue in my brain. I'm bulldog born, bulldog, that's my breed. I was born to follow where the bulldogs lead. Let's start.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a very special episode of Inside the Kennel. We're not investigating a player today, Dougie. We've actually got the great Rocket Eade and Kennel Master, as always, the King of Footscray, Dougie Hawkins. I'd love you to tell us a little bit about what you know about Rocket Rodney.
I know nothing, Matty, about Rocket Eade. Mate, just again, I know we're talking about the coach of the Bulldogs. When I started playing, I reckon Rocket come from Tassie, Matty. Correct?
Yeah, that's right. Bernie?
Yeah, Tassie. I think he come from Tassie. Touch on his footy first of all at Hawthorn. I didn't play on Rocket much because I had Dipper. I mainly had Dipper in those 80s and that was a handful anyway. And Rocket played on the other wing. Mate, terrific player. 2 or 3 time premiership player at Hawthorn as well. Great balance, both-sided, good courage. Number 26 he wore at Hawthorn, and I remember it very clearly. A fantastic player. When he came to the Bulldogs, I wasn't sure what we were going to get. He brought the package. He was on the edge. He got on the edge a lot of times. My mail is. He was a very honest, straight to the point coach. Didn't muck around. If you'd done something not right or whatever it might have been, he would nail you. Right. Very similar to Mickey Malthouse, I think. Not as bad as Mick, but not as hard as Mick. But I think he was really pretty hard and tough on Matty on the playing group. And they knew, not that he scared them, but they knew that they couldn't muck around for a bloke called Rodney Eade. Tell me his record, Matty, again. Obviously, it was after Plough, yeah?
Yeah, it was after Plough. He was there from 2005 to 2011, and he had about a 55% success rate at the Doggies. So I think that ranks in the top 5 or 6 of all time at the club.
Is that right? Matty? So he left on his own terms, Matty. Do you know the outcome towards the end of his coaching?
Look, I know that he wasn't best pleased. In 2011, we had a bit of a dip in performance because you probably recall that we had 3 prelim finals in a row, 2008, 9 and 10, and things didn't quite go to plan in 2011. So he was given his marching orders. And, I know that he ended up going to the Suns afterwards. So, he definitely wanted to stay and he had unfinished business to do.
Yeah, and his coaching there, Matty, was good. There's no doubt about that. There's a lot of good than bad with Rocket Eade as the Bulldogs coach. And you know what he was, Matty? And I'll tell you this, I say this a lot with blokes. He was a good bloke. Terrific bloke. A really good bloke. Down to earth. What you see is what you get. He called it how he felt it was. Okay, some players didn't like it, but guess what? Bad luck. He was right on the edge. He coached that way. He played footy right on the edge. And I'll say it again, he was a fantastic fellow, Rocket Eade. We're good mates. We're pretty good mates, me and Rocket. When we see each other, it's fantastic. A hug and a shake. And again, I think he was terrific for the Bulldogs, Matty. I think he done a great job developing some of the younger players at that stage right through to become on great players at the Bulldogs.
Yeah, and it's interesting you sort of talk about his style being, really direct and much like Mickey Malthouse. That obviously worked for you. You clearly like, an honest appraisal of how things are. So, some players don't like that. Is it the responsibility of the player to adapt to the coach, or do coaches need to sort of adjust their communication style for the players?
Well, I think Matty, what Mick Malthouse had, he had the ability to know who he could get into, if you know what I mean. Like he not that he picked him, but he knew that he could shake me up. He knew he could shake Steve McPherson up. Okay, if he had a crack at Brad Hardy right over too much, or what it might have been, not because it went pear-shaped, we all know that story, but Mick had the ability that, maybe not, go crazy at a Michael McLean, a Magic McLean, or a Lally, not saying Indigenous boys, but Lally Bambit, or even Simon Beasley. I mean, he'd have a crack at Simon. Yeah. He would have a crack at Simon. Make no, doesn't matter who you are or what you had. He would do that. Mick would do that, and I'm led to believe that I know feedback that I've had that Rocket, he was pretty good about who he went out.
Right.
And you know what I'm saying by that, Matty? You know who you can rock and who you can't rock. Some
Yeah.
blokes sit there and go like this, get sulk, But some blokes will go, I'll show you, I'll bloody stick it up you.
Yeah.
As EJ would say, I'll stick it up you. And Rocket was like that. I think he was pretty good. I remember one time he said something about Will Minson. Remember the big fella, the big ruckman?
There's some audio out there that I'm going to ask Rocket about where he wanted where he wanted Minson to get off the field, and I think he lost control up there.
Yeah, Matty, you're right. There's a few occasions. I remember one time when Leon Cameron had to slow him down, had to tell him to slow down. But Leon just kept saying, "Listen, Rocket, settle down, settle down, get him off the ball, get him off." But outside of that, Matty, he was a good coach for the Bulldogs. As a player, he was a very, very good wingman, very, very good player. Again, I thought he'd done a great job at the Dogs. Okay, we all can't coach forever, but I would give Rodney Eade a huge tick as a coach and as a footballer, another tick. And a bloke, good bloke, knockabout, on the edge.
On the edge, indeed.
Right
yeah.
on the edge.
Brilliant.
That's not him knocking, is it?
That's him kicking the door. So let's let him in. I know there's some other stories that you're going to tell me off camera for sure, Dougie. I can just see it in your eye. But
I love you, Rocket. Love you, Rocket.
There he comes. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to welcome the one and only Rocket, Rodney Eade. Rocket, welcome inside the kennel.
Thanks, mate. Great to be here, mate.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, listen, we're predominantly going to be focusing on your time at the Bulldogs today, but I want to take us a little bit back to 1976. You're a 17-year-old and come straight into the AFL system. Now, what is it like as a teenager to just in your ninth game to represent the mighty Hawks and to win a flag?
Yeah, it's a bit surreal when you look back. I don't think you appreciated at the time probably the enormity of it at the age, because obviously I turned 18 during the year. Hawthorn had lost the grand final of the year before to North Melbourne. I didn't get in until late. I was only a skinny school kid. There's quite a few players that had played on the wing during the year. So I think a bit of form, there were some injuries, and I just got my chance and just be able to play a role. But you don't realise probably now looking back at playing in an AFL, VFL premiership at that age, and now I was very fortunate to go to a very good footy club. So we had a lot of success, but could have easily gone somewhere else. But fortunately, I was able to play under the great Peter Hudson in Hobart, and he was able to recommend me. So a bit of sliding doors, I suppose. There was a bit of luck involved.
Yeah. Certainly. And look, we had Terry Wallace, the Plough, came on a few months ago and said that his role in 1978, he was given a really specific role, and he was told, you don't come out of the centre square, you're the gatekeeper. If it comes in, you get it out and move it forward. Was there a specific role or something that you had to do during that golden era?
It's interesting, probably early on, like I've played in 78 with Terry as well, but 76 as a boy, the great John Kennedy was coach, and John wasn't really tactically ingrained with and the game wasn't there then. You just played in your position, and really wingers like today, it's such a vital role. And even 10 years ago, they'd swap wings and run around everywhere, but you just had to stick to your side of the ground. And I remember the grand final, as you said, it was only my ninth game, and Wayne Schimmelbusch lined up on me, and I actually thought, oh, shivers, what's going on here? Because Schimmer had played really well as a half forward and forced John Kennedy to play Peter Knights on him. Peter Knights was obviously a great centre half back, but played him at half back flank. So this game, Barras put Schimmer on a wing, and I was more worried about what Schimmer would do to me rather than what I was trying to get the ball. So the first quarter, I didn't touch it. And I think, here I am playing in front of 100,000 people and I can't even get a kick. And fortunately, Schimmer only had one handball, I think. And then at quarter time, he got moved off. So it just relieved the pressure a bit. But probably more my role was really just to bed that down, not to be a match winner, of course, just to make sure you weren't beaten and to be able to put pressure on the opposition. So fortunately, it worked out okay on the day.
Yeah, it certainly did. And look, I've got great memories of being a young kid and seeing you out on Western Oval back in the mid 80s. You guys were a part of a really formidable outfit. What was it like coming in front of sort of a hostile crowd down at Footscray?
Yeah, it was interesting. I must admit, for probably some of my better games were at as it was, the Western Oval in those days, and Victoria Park was always a bit of a hotbed as well. But it was interesting going to the Western Oval because of the weather conditions and the narrowness of the ground. But the wind, whether it was blowing whichever way it was going and going across, and the doggies played the ground really well. And there's certain days that it was wet. So I think we had a reasonable record out there, but we did lose some games out there. There's no doubt. I do remember one game which really sticks in my mind more for the individuals, not so much the doggies people, that Alan Jeans was coach, and he was quite good friends with John Kennedy. John had retired after the 76 premiership and came back as chairman of selectors then. But it was Lee Matthews' 300th, and it was Kelvin Moore's 250th. And that John Kennedy is probably the best orator I've heard. Gingy was good. He's probably second best. Gingy was very good at it, but he got John to speak before the game, and it was blowing a gale. And John got up and spoke, and you got no idea how John spoke. And the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. The players virtually knocked the door down, kicked against the winner with 6 goals up at quarter time. Like, it was just phenomenal what he was able to engender with the players' spirit. And
yeah, amazing the influence a coach can have, isn't it? Now, look, in 1985 it was a really amazing year. You guys, the Hawks, finished runners-up to the Bombers. The Dogs were up there at the pointy end as well, and I think we played you guys 4 times that year. What were your recollections of the encounters against the Dogs around that sort of point of time? I think you played on Shorty Daniels on the wing. What was it like?
Yeah, they were a very good side. Obviously, we only won by 10 points in the prelim, and probably lucky in many ways. And Lee had been well beaten by Brad. And then, Lee was a superstar. He's the best player I've seen. But just his pride, I suppose, he got taken off and came back on and was able to get a couple of goals at the end. But I think the thing about what Hawthorn had was because they had so much success as well, that's a lot of belief. And they were a fairly ruthless group, and they wanted success. And I think it was probably the inexperience of the Bulldogs in the end. I think probably just the experience of the Hawthorn group who just wanted to get up. And no, we're very, very fortunate. And yeah, I played on Shorty that day, and he'd had a good season. My job that day was to tag him, so I'd become a bit of a tagger towards, and I played reasonably well. And we're able to get the chocolates. But certainly that year, the Doggies were a really good side, and probably unfortunate not to play in the grand final.
Yeah, was there a conscious tactic on Brad Hardy that day, because he was probably voted best on ground by most of the experts, but he was known for his attacking style, which I guess played into some of the players' hands because it could be loose. And obviously Lethal got on the end of maybe 2 or 3 goals, as you say, in that last quarter. Was there a tactical sort of strategy to sort of exploit that?
No, there wasn't. We probably, Alan Jeans wasn't great tactically either, because they had such a good side and believed in the players and their process. So I think it was more. I think we started to get a bit of ascendancy around the ball, and so we had a few more inside 50s than what we'd had previously. So there was a bit more service, and there wasn't as much pressure as I think the Doggies' pressure was pretty good for 3 and a bit quarters. And I think that just dropped away that smidgen, and was able to give forwards who had a bit of space at the time and players up around like myself to be able to deliver the ball a little bit easier than what had been happening the first 3 quarters.
Yeah, well, Dougie Hawkins still has nightmares about it. He's hard to talk to him about that game. So it was the one that got away. But I guess you ended up playing in four premierships for the mighty Hawks. I think, am I right in saying that next week against the Bombers, even though you played a very good game, I remember hearing on Wide World of Sports, you might have even got a vote. And did you not end up playing in the grand final? Is that right?
No, that was probably my lowest point of my career. I got dropped a couple of times, but yeah, I got some votes in the media after the preliminary final, and got votes in the best and fairest as well, and got dropped. And I didn't get told till after the grand final parade. So I went on the grand final parade thinking I was playing because I played well. My parents were on the plane on the way over from Hobart, and then I got told after the parade went back to Glenferrie Oval. So it was a bit of a kick in the pants. But as always, as coaching, when players say to me that they're a bit upset about being dropped, I thought, well, okay, you get dropped from a grand final, see how you feel about it. But it was a bit of a shock. And the seconds played that day, so I had mixed emotions. I didn't crack it at the time, but I went home and thought, oh, stuff it, I'm not going to turn up for the reserves. And I thought, well, I'm the only one that's going to suffer for that. I'll go, but I won't try. You go through all these emotions. And I thought, no, just go there and do your best. And there was myself, Peter Knights, Michael Byrne, Colin Robertson. It was a really strong reserves team. We ended up winning against Carlton. I had a very strong side as well. Well, I mean, we're that strong out reserves that day. So the seniors are playing as well, obviously. That Brett Lovett, who ended up playing 150 games for Melbourne, won a best and fairest at Melbourne, played for Victoria, was an emergency for the reserves. Yeah, it was a really, really strong team. But anyway, that was a bit of a kick in the backside.
Yeah, well, it obviously steeled you up and probably helped guide you, I guess, with how to communicate and how not to communicate with players, in your later years. And we'll investigate that a little bit further, Rocket, shortly. But I guess you went to Brisbane Bears as it was in the time, and after your 14 seasons as a player came to an end, you jumped straight into coaching. Was that sort of a burning ambition of yours?
No, it wasn't. It's an interesting story. I've told it a few times, but it was at a time when there was the ownership problems. So Skase had left. Ruben Pellerman had came in as owner. They had no money, wouldn't spend any money. Paul Feltham had taken over at nights. He got the sack, and Paul Feltham had taken over at the end of the year. Then there was a bit of a coup. There was a bit of politics going on, and some players didn't want Feltham coach. Anyway, Norm Dare was given the job as coach, and he got no new players in. There was no money. So that we were really struggling a bit, and we had this reserves in the AFL competition. One of the players to coach the reserves. So he spoke to myself and Choco Williams. Mark was up there. So about sharing the job. And I didn't want to coach. Anyway, the board or committee, so probably in those days, said they only want one player to do it. So Mark opted to concentrate on playing, and I was playing as well. So it was quite archaic, really. I would play in the seniors. I'd coach the reserves till 3/4 time, then go and prepare for the seniors.
Wow.
As a player. So it's very much like country footy. As luck would have it, bad luck, but luck, I did hurt my knee about round 4 or 5. So I just concentrated, I missed 10 weeks. So I just concentrated on the twos and enjoyed it. I really just enjoyed it. And my last game, and then I got back into the ones for my last game. Norm gave me a game, which was against the Bulldogs, played on Doug out at the Western Oval, and then coached again the next year as full-time, just coaching the reserve. So yeah, it whetted my appetite, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, it must have agreed with you, because you won a reserves premiership at Brisbane. You went across to North Melbourne, had more success there, and then in your first year at Sydney, you took them in '96 right to the top of the tree into the grand final. So were you thinking this coaching gig isn't that difficult after all?
Not really. My first 2 games at the Swans, we got belted. I remember going to Adelaide. We lost by 80 points. That's my first game coaching. Second game was against Fremantle at the SCG, and nobody used to lose to Fremantle in those days. And we lost by 5 goals. And I'm going home and thinking, what do we do here? And as luck would have it, next week we were able to beat Collingwood. Then we beat Richmond by a point, and we just scraped a draw. And then all of a sudden, it just grew in confidence, and I think we won 16 and a half games for the year. So, yeah, it turned around, and I'd say quickly, but probably over a 2 or 3 week period.
Yeah, well, amazing feeling. And so, how was it then that you came to move across and join the Dogs? Can you tell us how that transition happened?
Yes, I was moved on from the Swans, or we agreed towards the end of 2002. I stayed in Sydney for a couple of years. A family member sick with cancer, so I stayed up there to help with that, which made it a bit difficult, flying down for some media stuff and whatever. And then at the end of 2004, I got a call from Fitzroy, Adelaide, Richmond, and the Dogs and Hawthorn. And then the Dogs had spoken to me. Jose Romero phoned up, who I knew Jose from North Melbourne. He was on the board at the Dogs, and then someone else said about coming down for a meeting I remember it on a Sunday, and I was supposed to meet Hawthorn on the Monday, and I wasn't one that I'm not one to play people off of whatever you get more money or you get this or get that, and so I had a few things I wanted to tick off, as in where they saw the list at, what they saw the future, etc., etc. And they were very impressive in their interview process, and it ticked those boxes. And I thought, and they offered me the job, and I said, yeah, I'll take it. Yeah, I'm more than happy. I can see a bright future. So that's how it happened.
Well, it would have been, such romance of you going back and returning to Hawthorn. So amazing that we impressed you to that sort of degree, because there was an amazing amount of optimism, I remember, with your appointment. And in fact, to this day, Dogs fans, absolutely love you. You've got a success record of 56% at the Dogs, which is one of the highest of all time. So is there a mutual love for the Footscray people?
Oh, very much so. I often say to people, obviously I played in premiership, so I've got an affiliation with Hawthorn. But even put that aside, the premierships, I reckon the Dogs I've got the closest feeling to. As in, I enjoyed my time. The people at the club were terrific. Players were fantastic. I really had I was fortunate to have such a great group of players and staff. But I love the supporters. They were, salt of the earth, but they were very passionate, honest. I must admit, I really enjoyed my time at the Western Bulldogs. It was really, it certainly holds dear to me, that's for sure.
That's unreal. And look, in your first season, 2005, we won 11 and lost 11. So you really steadied the ship in a lot of ways. At that time, I'm not sure if you're aware, but the statistic was average bounces per game was 4. Now, you somehow increased that to 44 bounces a game. And I think your old mate, Martin Flanagan, described us as fiddlers who played faster than anyone. How were you able to instill that confidence in a team that was just really languishing?
Yeah, it's a good point. If you can stick with me for a bit of a long story, and I actually talk about this when I do some corporate talks about being flexible in your thought process and whatever. But because the Dogs have finished, I think, last and second last the previous 2 years, and I went there and we had some, and I didn't know a lot about the players. They were quite young, except we had 5 players who had played over 200 games: and Smith, Johnson, West, Darcy, and Grant. And I was really impressed with them. I couldn't believe you're lucky to get 5 guys who are terrific leaders. So that was, but the rest of them I didn't know. They were really skinny kids, and I found they hadn't done a lot of weights, and there's a whole range of different things that haven't developed. And I thought, I don't know a lot about them. Let's have our pre-season in November. We're down Hyde Road there. There was some parks, and we played some small-sided games, 6-on-6, 8-on-8, 10-on-10 type thing. And I thought, gee, they've got some skill. I couldn't believe how much skill they had, and I wanted to introduce a bit of the player power, where they own where we go a bit and give the responsibility a bit to players, and they weren't at that stage. But anyway, I one day, this is an interesting story. I got the senior group down there, and I said, "There's 40 players. There might have been 42, but say there's 40 players. Can the senior players go to my left? Can the rest of the players go to my right?" Now, and I asked the crowd, "What do you think?" when I took a corporate talk. But really, you'd want everyone to go to my left. You want 40 players, whether they're even on the rookie list. You want them to think that the senior players. I had 8. 5 of those played 200. Even Rob Murphy didn't go there.
Wow.
So I had 8 players. So there, for me, had gone there. We had the flood in Sydney. Introduced that. I was quite a defensive coach. As in set the defence, more about opening space for Tony Lockett, etc., small ground. And I thought, well, their number one thing here is confidence. Their belief and self-esteem is low. But I thought to myself, and spoke to the match committee, how do we get confidence in? It's very easy to say, don't worry about making mistakes, but do you actually carry that through? So anyway, over the next couple of months, I see that their skill level. We did some sprint testing. When I was at the 3-second mark is the cutoff. Whoever they are, the experts say if you're under 3 seconds for 20-metre sprint, you're quick. I remember when I was playing, there was 3 or 4 of us. At Sydney, when I was there was 7 or 8. I had 22 at the Bulldogs.
Wow.
So
Wow.
they've got speed, they've got some skill, they're light. Okay, I think we've got to change the game plan. So let's worry about what they can do rather than what they can't do. Most coaches, and it's not to go, is build the defence first. You go to the defence, you build rock base. So we wanted to take the game on. So you go to the number of bounces, it was a thing we said about change pace, carry the ball, take the space in front of you, take the grass, run and carry the ball. So that's what we did. And I remember round 16, we played Adelaide, and Adelaide, we had about 6 out. We were struggling a bit. So I changed things around. We lost by 60 points. And I was really positive with the players afterwards. I always remember and say, I thought you were terrific today trying to carry out what we tried to implement. And it's on me, my mistake. Next week, we got 4 or 5 players back. We beat Geelong by 6 goals, and we got in the run. We won 5 of the last 6, lost to Melbourne with Jeff White, kicked the goal virtually on the siren, lose by 3 points. If we'd won that game, we would have made the finals. So to me, at the end of that season, the confidence is ticked. Okay, they got belief. And I remember trying to give the players ownership about what they want to stand for and the culture and all that sort of thing. And I remember Daniel Jones, Syracuse, and Rob Murphy come and said, Rocket, that's fine, but we just want you to coach us. You just want to teach us how to win. So they didn't want to own the team as such. But once that confidence level is, then we're able to give them more say, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, that's a long story about how the bouncers came and to take the game on and play an attacking sort of brand of footy.
Oh, that's an awesome story, Rocket. And it just shows, the mindset's everything, and you're able to, to tap into that and use that flexibility to our advantage. And, it's really curious to hear you talk about empowering the players. Luke Darcy spoke to us last week and came up with a very interesting story about you in one of the early pre-seasons, saying it's going pretty well, but you guys are a bit too nice. And Darcy says that you instructed him before an intra-club match to start a bit of a Royal Rumble, start a fight with his own teammates. Can you clarify that?
Yes, I did that, but I've heard him when he's been on radio saying that I instructed him to hit Will Minson, to hit Rob Murphy, knock Rob Murphy out. And I didn't instruct him to hit anyone in particular or to hit anyone at all. I just said, Darcy, because Darcy was quite an aggressive player. I really respected and admired the way Luke played. Unfortunately, appointed him captain and he hurt his knee second game and sort of didn't really recover, did it again. So it was a bit unfortunate for us, really, as a club. Luke going down and then Chris as well retired. So anyway, I said, Darcy, we've got to do something. Everyone's a bit nice. I said, we've got to have a bit. How about you start a blue? I didn't tell him how to start it. He could just push and shove if he wanted to. But he ended up, and he's really close to Rob Murphy, and he gave him a coat hanger and knocked him out. And then no one would go at him. And then he instigated a few in the opposition. We're playing against each other. Come on, have a go. What are you? So no one would do anything, but we're probably a very raw and old school thing to try and do. But it was just we've got to, stick up for your mates, but be aggressive at the ball, et cetera, et cetera. So, yes, I did talk to Luke about that, and maybe he overstepped the mark. I'll take the blame for it.
Yeah. He did say you went missing afterward and sort of said, what are you doing, Darcy? And I did hear he also he went at Will Minson after Bob Murphy as well. So whatever you said, you definitely instilled a bit of mumbling.
Well, he did go to Will. He said, come on, Will, what are you going to do about it? And everyone just looked at him, where it's really about sticking up for your mates. And that, I didn't instruct him to hit anyone. And it was about really probably giving a free kick away behind play or attacking someone to the ground or whatever the case may be. But he gave Murph a nice little belting. So anyway.
Yeah, well, Murph can't remember it. But speaking of Will Minson, we can't have a chat to you without bringing it up. It's come up many times, your infamous coach's box spray. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened on that day when Will, I guess, was on the receiving end of the tirade?
Well, he wasn't on the receiving end because he never knew about it. So it wasn't. So Will's never heard it until he heard the tape. So it was totally in the box. It's really going at the runner, and that's over a 2-hour period. So they've cut and pasted it into a minute. Everyone thinks, oh, that's what I did continually for a whole minute, which is not the case. So it's really borne out. And look, I thought Will was a terrific player for the Dogs. He was a really good fellow to coach, always trying to improve. But he'd challenge you on certain things, which was good. Always wanted to get better. I thought he was a really good player. But Will, like a lot of players, didn't want to come off when the rotations were going. So it happened over a few weeks. So that was the thing about me to the runner, tell Will to get off. Would you just get him off? Because we've got someone to come on who's going to be a forward. So one of our forwards going to be in the ruck, and then it mucked up. Anyway, so they've cut and pasted it and made it like that. So it was directed at Will, but Will never knew that it existed. So
get him off. Get him off. Get him off. Come on. Rocket, we can't hear. Get Minson off. Take Minson off now.
Who was the runner, Rocket?
No, I can't. It wasn't Kenny. It wasn't Mark Hunter. I know that. I had lunch with Mark the other week, and he never brought that up. So it wasn't. He brought a couple of other stories up, but never brought that one up. So I don't know who.
That's
Probably
right. We'll find that out. Don't worry. Now, speaking of runners, and I know that Kenny Hunter, who you just mentioned, came down to be a runner with Danny Delray one year. They came down as a pair. And Danny was on the show about a month ago and said that he had great ambitions to be a coach, and you almost vaporised him one day because he gave him about 50 different instructions, and he ran out there just before the game to do it, and he had a brain freeze. He couldn't remember all the instructions you'd given him, so he ran back to the coach's box, and the phone was there waiting for him, and he just knew what was coming. And in the end, he pretty much self-combusted. So I think you gave him an ultimate spray.
Yeah, where he mucked up, he's a lovely fella, Danny. I wouldn't have given someone 50 instructions before the game. I think he has exaggerated a bit. But where he mucked up, I remember we were playing in Perth. Like if you're taking the halfback, during the game, we're taking the halfback flanker off. Now, the fact that he's played VFL footy, you wouldn't take the halfback flanker straight off. You'd put a winger back, or you take someone for half forward to cover in defence. But not Danny. He took the half forward off, then he put the half back to half forward, and he's left us one short in defence. So I asked him in no uncertain terms, what do you think you're doing, Danny? This is not the right. And I think he did self-combust after that one.
Absolutely. Now, were there any other massive sprays that haven't been sort of raised in the past? Have you got anything in the closet that you'd like to share?
No, not really. I obviously it was a public relation with Brian Lake. Yeah. But I had a really good relationship with Brian. He used to make me laugh, and but he was frustrating to coach. And I know even at Hawthorn they kept that in house, but he was, because Brian really would do what Brian wanted to do, which is he's a terrific player. He's as good as Marcus one-on-one defensively that I've seen. I'll be able to judge the ball, but Brian didn't like players who lay up the ground, or he always wanted to kick off one step. And we're trying to instruct players to get some momentum through the ball. Brian had good speed and would say run and carry the footy and then kick it. But he'd kick on his left foot and he couldn't kick left forward. So he'd just do things that would annoy. So there's a couple of stories about Brian, which are quite funny. I found them amusing, so hopefully the audience does. We're playing the Lions up at the Gabba, and they put Jonathan Brown to full forward at the start of the game. So this, again, follow your full forward. And they opened up space. It's not like it was today where you had the zones and whatever. And sort of early in the first quarter, coming out of the centre, bang, Brown leaves up the middle. Brian just stays in the goal square. Jonathan Brown marks 45 out, kicks a goal. So I sent my mate, one of the runners, Brendan. I said, Brendan, you go and tell Brian, can he just follow his full forward? We told him before the game, so I was pretty strong about it. He goes up to Brian. Brian says, you go and tell Rocket. So this is a player having to go back to the coach. You go and tell Rocket, that was Matthew Boyd's fault. If he hadn't decided to try and handball there and hadn't got tackled, they wouldn't have got the ball out and they wouldn't have kicked it to Brown. So you go and tell Rocket, that was Matthew Boyd's fault. Anyway, all right. So another 10 minutes into the further on, I sent another message out somewhere, and Brendan's about half back, and Brian's shouted out to him, Brendan, come here. That last goal they got, that was Matthew Boyd's fault as well. He gave the free kick away. You go and tell Rocket, that's 2 goals he's caused us. That's Matthew Boyd's fault. It's not mine. It's not anyone else's. It's Matthew Boyd's fault. And when Brendan told me, I couldn't stop laughing. It was really funny. There's another one Brian, we played in 2008. We're playing Hawthorn about round 11 or 12, and we're both undefeated in
Right.
Tassie. They'd won 11 in a row. We'd won 10 in a draw, I think. And it's a one that Will kicked the goal on the siren to draw with Richmond, where Brian faked his hamstring. Anyway, so we go to Tassie, and they've got Franklin and they've got all the players. And anyway, it's a pretty tight game most of the game, and we're in front at three-quarter time by about 15 points, 16 points. So it's pretty tense at three-quarter time, positive feel, go around the players. And I feel this tap on my shoulder, left shoulder, at the outside of the thing. Turn around and it's Brian. Like, it's pretty serious. And he goes, "Did you see my left foot kick there just before three-quarter time? It's a bloody good kick, wasn't it?" I said, "F off, Brian. Will you just leave me alone?" And I was laughing. I tried to stop. I didn't walk away because I was about to laugh. But he used to make me laugh. He'd come up with some weird and wonderful things.
He'd love some feedback. And am I right in saying that he really wanted to play full forward under you? And was there an incident before a game that he was almost going to withdraw before a match?
Yeah, but this is really, you'll be on your homework here, Matt. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. He used to rate himself as a forward. I think he got recruited originally as a forward. Anyway, and always Brian didn't like training and he didn't like doing things. You know, he played the mind games, Brian. That's fine. And we're in Perth playing West Coast, and the physio phones or the doc phones in the morning. Brian's hurt his back. He's got a back spasm. Don't think he'll be able to play. It's about 7:30 in the morning. I said, "Yeah, okay, no worries." I said, "Listen, you go back to Brian and say, if he gets up, I'll start him at full forward." So sure enough, Brian's fine. 10 minutes in the first quarter, then I put him to fullbacks. I gave him a chance. He didn't get a touch, and I put him back to fullback.
Bad luck, Brian. Love it. Good try. Awesome. Well, he's dominating down at Carolyn Springs, so it all comes around in the end.
Yeah, that's good. No, he was a fantastic player.
Yep. Now, I did a little bit of research on Ed Barlow, who I think he might have coached at Sydney, came across at the Dogs as well. He ended up becoming a master of sports psychology, and he wrote an article recently just talking about the importance of coaches adapting and adjusting to their particular targets, because some people can take on feedback, like you're talking about with Brian. Others go to water with it, and Ed said with you, he never felt that that he was uncertain about what your message was. So for him, he felt really safe with that. Whereas others, I guess, may have found it too confrontational or too direct, some of the messaging. Did you adjust your messaging and communication depending on who you're speaking with?
Oh, there's no doubt. Yeah, you do that all the time. Like, I get a reputation of being hard and at people, but generally it was to a group. It wasn't to an individual. And sometimes players would respond to that. Brian would always respond to it. Other players don't. So it's all about trying to get the best out of players. Mm-hmm. One thing I did, and maybe with Ed, because I did recruit Ed, the recruiting manager at the time had a blue. He didn't want him at all. I should tell you that one day. And Ed had his deficiencies, but he tall, he could run, he was a good kick. And he was guy, so you'd think he wouldn't respond to hard feedback, which I didn't give him harsh feedback, to be honest, but I was honest.
Yep.
And I think it's more about being honest, even if you are being the cuddly type with a player, you still got to find a way to be. There's no good saying that he's tackling well if he's not tackling well. If he's letting it down in a certain area or he's not hard enough for the ball, whoever it is, you can't just put your arm around the shoulder and say everything's going fantastic, then you drop him the next week because you'll go, well, how come you've dropped me? You didn't tell me that I wasn't. So, but I think there's just a way of giving feedback to each individual. Most of all of it's in an honest way, but most of it's really in a way to improve. That's the thing. The hard edge feedback, I think I've been labelled. I give maybe from outside people that I give that all the time, and it's not true.
Yep. Fantastic, Rocket. Thank you. Who are the players from the Bulldogs who were the best to coach, who are easy to coach, or who flourished under you and they really gelled with your style as a mentor?
It's a good question. Like, obviously the older players, I was probably harder on younger players, as in didn't compromise standards. Not yell and scream, but it was more, no, this is the way we do it. this is how you've got to learn, because they don't know what they don't know, and they form their habits young. So the older players are easy to coach. And I mentioned there before, Smith and Grant and West and Darce and Granty was fantastic. Just they were really easy to coach, and you'd ask their opinion and get their thoughts on it. Then there was the Hahn, Murphy, Giansera group, who had probably played 30, 40, 50 games. Cross, Boyd, Gilby. Gilby really flourished. So they were a group that I thought I helped and assisted take their game to another level. We had a lot of Hargrave was another one, Lake was another one. They're all together, and they're all a pretty tight group. They're all different. Boyd and Cross were just fanatical. They just knock the door down and just virtually say the way they prepare themselves. Pickham was another one. You've just got to pick me because they just work so hard and you could trust them. And those other guys I mentioned were fantastic footballers, but they just were at the right age to be able to learn to play the game the right way. So I think I was fortunate in that. So there's that group. And then the younger groups come along with Cooney and Griffin. Cal Ward was a real disappointment he left, but I certainly understood why he did, but it would have been fantastic for him to stay. Those sort of players really, they're fantastic coach.
Wow, it just sounds like a candy store of players there that you're mentioning. What an amazing array to have at your disposal. And were there any? I'd love to hear, who were your really challenging players to coach?
Not that anyone sticks out. I think at anyone, there's always going to be players that you're going to cut from lists who probably don't make it. Probably attitudinal wise, have a bit more talent and should have gone on and didn't. So, but no one really sticks out. I mean, I even knew that at Hawthorn. There was players that probably should have gone on and didn't have the right edge to professionalism, if that's the right phrase, or killer instinct. And now there were players like that at the Dogs, but I didn't have any real issues. Brian was the most interesting one. But I think Brian played some really good footy. Like, he won the best and fairest, he's All-Australian at the Bulldogs. He was a really good player. So, you sort of, hopefully that you assist him along the way to be able to do that. But I thought, there wasn't any real difficulty. You try and encourage an environment where they could challenge or discuss or put their views up. And that's why you like a Matthew Boyd. I think he was a terrific leader, because he'd come and he'd be honest as well. And same with Jono. Jono was the same. He'd just be honest about, you ask opinions about training or what we need to do, or the way of game style, what do we need to do, how we go about it. And they'd just give some really good feedback, which was taken on board. So, and that's what you try and generate amongst a group. So a fantastic group to coach, to be honest.
Brilliant. Well, let's investigate this a little bit. So 2006, we surged, didn't we, as a club? We made the top 8 for the first time in a long way. Can you describe that finals campaign? Obviously, we played in front of Collingwood, against Collingwood, in front of a packed crowd at the MCG, and then ultimately went on against the Eagles. How was that campaign?
Yeah, it was good. We beat the Eagles at the MCG about 3 games before the end of the season by 6 goals. And then we beat Collingwood in that final. I remember Brett Montgomery got knocked out. He wouldn't be allowed back on the ground these days, but he got back on and kicked 4 or 5 goals. And then we went to Perth, and people I knew in Perth said that Eagles were worried about us, or worried about our speed, because they'd carry the ball. But we were light. We're just light in body size. So we're over those next few years, we're trying to add muscle to their frame to play more contested game. But I remember before the game, I spoke to Matthew Drain, and we're in the race, and I said, "It's going to bloody rain." He said, "No, it won't." I said, "No, it will." He said, "Oh, that'll be right." And I said, "No, it won't." I said, "Well, we won't be able to bounce the ball. It'll be a more contested game. They're bigger than us." And that's the way it rained just before the game started. So just as luck, I'm not saying we would have won, but I'm certain we would have given a really good shake about. They were certainly a bit worried about us, the way we were able to play, but it didn't work out that way. So I think we took a lot of positives out of 5 and 6, and I think we're heading in the right direction. 2007, we had a massive amount of injuries. We had a lot of injuries, which some people hierarchy at the club didn't accept, and put me under pressure for various reasons, which I think was unjust. But anyway, then had a review at the end of 2007, which you never have a review and get someone out, because the reviews always give the answers that people want. So that put me offside with it. Or in my mind, I didn't trust some people after that. But then it led to 2008, and we kicked off our program. I always remember the first game, which was Jono's 300th, and he's kicked a winning goal, and he's kicked 6 or 7 or whatever, 8 or whatever he did, and that set us on. As I said before, 2008, we won 10.5 out of the first 11 games. So yeah, it was a really good season. So.
Yeah, well, I think by round 15 we'd lost 1.5, hadn't we? And we're absolutely flying. Tell us why was that group so amazing? What was it? Was it just that they gelled as a collection, or were they just their skill level next level?
No, yeah, they certainly had some skill level, but going back to 05, about being able to back what they have. But I think they were a tight group, and eventually got to the stage where they were able to drive each other. They took that ownership, the Boyds and Crosses and those guys as well. But being in the same age, they were pretty close, and they were a team. They had some had a lot of ability. Nathan Eagleton was another one who was really good for us as well. That they no one saw themselves as the match winner, even though they could be the match winner. So Murph could be, or Cooney could be. They did want to play as a team, so they backed their own strengths and issues, but played the game plan and the team. So I was probably throw players around a little bit. They accepted that. So yeah, I think it was really just the strength of the unit as much as anything.
Yeah, we had Acker on recently, and he just said that forward line was just really dynamic, because we weren't overly tall, were we? We had Jono, we obviously had Acker and Gia. These guys were quick, they were elusive, they could mark overhead, and just really, really challenging to match up on. Was that something that you really tried to exploit?
Yeah, I think you just cut your cloth to what you've got. Like, you'd love to have one or even two tools, and that's why we ended up getting Barry Hall. But yeah, we had to move the ball quickly and then adjust our game plan even from 2005 to be able to hit leading targets. And we threw Murph up forward. Sean Higgins was just coming on, so you have Murph and Higo. Acker came on board. You got Jono. Then you tried. Scotty Walsh came in as the full forward, but not an extremely big man. You play Will down there a bit, but yeah. So it was trying to have a rotating have a mobile forward line that could play different parts of the ground. Mitch Hahn was probably our centre half forward, and he was a terrific player. Mitch, he was really worked hard, and I suppose as a coach, you like guys who compete, and he continually gave you a contest. Just the word honest comes to my mind with all their players. I mean, they're just honest in the way they went about it and wanted to learn and wanted to improve.
Yeah, brilliant. So 2008, we made it to the prelim. It was the first of our 3 prelims, wasn't it? And were we just not mature enough, or just not quite good enough at that point?
Yeah, we trailed off the back of the end of the year, and I'll probably take some of the blame for that. I think we kept playing the same one. I think teams did some homework on us, and we lost to Hawthorn first game. Then we beat, was it Sydney? And we beat, I think, to get the preliminary final. And
That's
Geelong
right.
Geelong had really made a big surge the second half of the season. They had a really talented side, and they were super favourites. But we changed our game plan again, and Higo got back in after doing his ankle, and we picked him for probably his first game for 13 weeks. And he played well. We hit leading targets, and we gave ourselves a really good chance. Unfortunately, it didn't work. We're probably just a little bit short in that aspect. No, we probably weren't. We weren't ready to compete at that stage.
Yeah, but 2009 came along, and in many people's eyes, this was sort of the sweet spot, our window right open. We came perilously close, didn't we? Was this one of the better squads that you ever coached?
Yeah, I think that was the unfortunate. I don't think 2010 we were close. But it's interesting. I don't know if people will remember, but the grand final, St Kilda were probably unlucky to lose against Geelong.
Yep.
And Ross Lyon said post-game, he said, now I know how the Bulldogs feel of last week. So he felt that they should have won the grand final, but he also felt that we probably should have won the preliminary final against St Kilda. So Yeah, we kicked inaccurately. We didn't take our chances, which you've got to do at certain times. People talk about contested ball, but our contested ball in 8, 9, and 10, we're in the top 3 for the competition. And that year we were 9. I think we were first or second. We won contested ball that day. We won tackling. We won everything. We just couldn't convert. And the chances that we had, even that last quarter, Lindsay Gill was such a good kick.
Oh,
And the bloke just got his finger to it. And missed a left foot goal close by Jono as well.
Yep.
There were a couple of umpiring decisions that were a bit questionable. So, everything seemed to conspire, but that was our best chance. So it's always an if. But if we win that, I think the players would have gone in with a bit of confidence for the next week, whether they would have won or not. But they certainly would have gone in with some confidence against the Cats.
yeah, absolutely. And obviously there was that Brian Lake bump. You were talking about some questionable umpiring decisions. That looked like a love tap.
Well, Brian had not under instruction. Brian took on himself, I think, to terrorise Nick Riewoldt a bit. And Dale Morris had told me later that the umpire had warned him, Brian, leave him alone. Obviously, this is before half time. So Nick Riewoldt had heard that. So after half time, Brian's gone close to him. Riewoldt's dived, and the umpires were out. And I've seen that umpire, Shane McInerney, a bit, and I kept reminding him, and he's put his hand up and said he was wrong. But I think we might have been 8 or 10 points up. I don't know what we were.
Yeah.
And then he kicked a goal before the bounce. Then they got a goal out of the centre square, and then it's game on again. So.
Yeah, the momentum changed, didn't it? It was like the grassy knoll, and down went Nick, and down our chances went with it. So, yeah, nightmare.
Yeah, we still had our chances. And I was pleased with the players. They really fought back. We hit the lead a couple of times.
Yep.
And as I said, we had a couple of opportunities in that last quarter, which just were fingernails away. But anyway, there's a lot of stories like that in sport, and we just didn't take the chances that were presented.
No, but look, we did reload, didn't we, for 2010? It was, in Jono's words, it was the last roll of a dice. If you look at our full forward line that year, at the start of the year, Acker, Barry Hall, Brad Johnson, the total age was 101 between those 3. So it was an ancient forward line. But did you give us any chance to rise to the top, Rocket?
Yeah, I did. And we played Acker in many different roles, and he accepted that. He went to a wing at stage, and I remember he had trouble with Jared Crouch, and we'd get Acker at half back, and he responded really well to that. And then he was dangerous when he'd go up forward. So, yeah, we're all flexible. But I can't remember a lot about the end of the year, but I think we got a couple of injuries. We got a bit tired towards the end, but we lost our first final where we lost 2. Then we beat. It might have been Sydney again. We beat Sydney. And then got the prelim, which we were just short most of the time. We just didn't look though we were threatening St Kilda, but we hung in there. And again, that was a real trait of the players. They never gave in at any stage. They were really competed hard and kept on working. But maybe the next year I made a mistake. It might have cost me. I think that maybe I needed to be a bit ruthless, like Clarkson was at Hawthorn. Maybe some players needed to replace and move on, and maybe I just showed a bit of confidence for players that had done the job before, and I probably needed to just swing the door a little bit.
Well, look, we tried to bring in the big guns, as you sort of say, with Barry Hall, and we obviously won the night premiership in 2010, so we had the fans howling. Was Barry's appointment 1 year too late, would you say? Did we try and sort of leverage a tall forward?
Yes, we had a lot, yes. And it was unfortunate that Barry didn't have the blue with Paul Roos the year before. So that was the catalyst that so anyway, it was it would have been great if Barry had come the year before. The other thing I've always said too, I'd love to have had Chris Grant 3 years younger when I arrived. So Chris was fantastic. I couldn't believe his knowledge of the game, but his ability at his age and influence he could have on a game at 34, 35 years of age, 33 years of age. So, yeah, it would have been nice if Chris was 3 years younger when I got there.
Yeah, so many ifs and, human Tetris, and if, things were slightly different, who knows the result. But speaking to Acker, he rused that sort of the end of his career, and he talked about, his demise and exit. Was he sacking the right thing to do?
It probably got to a stage. It was probably the thing that had to happen. But that was out of my. I think Jason probably thought it was maybe player driven or whatever, but it was certainly hierarchy driven, and it is what it is. I think too. He hurt his calf as well. I think his football was probably finished because he'd retired at the end of the previous year, and he had a job at Channel 7 and Triple M, I think. And then that didn't work out. Then he asked to come back, and I had confidence. So it was me that said yes, but there wasn't a lot of money left at salary cap because we'd made plans. So, but his body was just starting to wane a bit as well. So, but he had a fantastic career, and I think he was good for the Dogs for those 3, 7, 8, 9, 10 for 4 years. Yeah, he was good.
Yeah, he certainly brought the people through the turnstiles, didn't he? We absolutely love Acker, and I guess we move now into 2011, and that was your final year at the helm, as you sort of said. Looking back at the end, was it the right time for you to finish, or was it a premature end for your career as a coach?
Oh, I think it was premature, to be honest. We played in 3 prelims, and the record before that there was 1 down year, and then I think there was personalities who I won't name them, and come into the club, and so had their set agendas, and so I would have thought after what happened and proved from 2005, had a young team that were able to turn that around, that if we go again with development, that you could do that again. So anyway, it wasn't to be.
Oh, we hated seeing the back of you, Rocket, that's for sure. So looking back, is your overall sort of feeling about your time at the Dogs a feeling of pride, or is there regret or unfulfillment? What's the overriding emotion?
Certainly no regret. I don't live life with regret as such. You probably could do things differently, and some decisions at times, or some games or whatever. But overall, I was really pleased to have been involved with the Western Bulldogs. I think hopefully it was good for the club, but it was certainly good for me. I really enjoyed being there. I loved the players. They were terrific. Loved coaching them, but the staff I had were great, and the supporters, as I said. So yeah, for the bulk of it, I really enjoyed being there.
Yeah, and just speaking of players, there are characters everywhere, aren't they? And our clubs had some amazing ones. Were there any sort of serious pranksters amongst that group, and any sort of pranks that stand out in your mind that you might like to tell us?
Oh, that Adam Cooney was pretty good. He's do thing, but I think you find at most clubs that they do things. But Barry Hall was a good prankster. When we got into our new facility, we had the boxing ring, and they had those fire doors that went out to the ground. Barry had pinch the car keys of Jared Grant, then go and drive his car and put it in the boxing ring inside the building, and then hide his car keys. He couldn't get his car out. So he'd be doing crazy things like that, Baz. So it was quite, players really enjoyed that type of thing. So yeah, very childish at some stage, the players.
Love it. Awesome. Now, 2016, I just want to sort of raise before we let you go. It was an amazing year for the club, and you watching it as a proud former coach. Some of those players that you coached were out there on that field. Were you? Did you sort of feel that you were a part of that journey and that success story?
No, I never thought about being a part of it, but certainly ecstatic about them winning. Really happy that they win, not only just for the players in the club, but supporters who hadn't seen a flag. So it wasn't much for them, but certainly there was pride of the players I had coached, especially, you can name them all, but, Pickett and Morris were fantastic players. Morris is as good as anyone from the way he came in, his story about to get to where he got to, but couldn't get games in under 18 level and all that sort of thing was fantastic. Liam was another one. It's a great story through the rookie list as well. So, and there's obviously other players that I coached, but I thought it was fantastic for the club, and hopefully they can do it again this year.
Yeah, absolutely, Rocket. Before we let you go today, I just wanted to finally say: are there any messages that you'd like to leave for the Bulldog fans, and any way that you'd like to be remembered?
To be remembered, I think that a person who embraced the club, still got a strong affinity with the club, and hopefully laid a foundation, but hopefully improved the club and the perspective of the players and supporters along the way. For the supporters, and I know I'm still friendly with quite a few Bulldog supporters, and this is my Hawthorn upbringing coming through this. They said, "Oh, I've seen one now. I don't care what happens to the club and what happens to the team." And I said, "That's the wrong attitude. We've got to be ruthless. We've got to chase more silverware." I said, "Don't accept." And that particular person is quite high profile. I said, now gets really frustrated with the team and we didn't make the finals and all that sort of. I said, well, that's the attitude. You know, be passionate, be enthusiastic, be supportive. Don't be critical. Don't be critical, but certainly ask the right questions about why this has not been done, why isn't it, whatever. But at the same time, you've got to demand excellence. You know, we're there to win. We're not there now to be the poor Western suburbs, the poor us, that, you know, we've got another flag and we have to wait another 50 years. Well, we don't have to wait another 50 years. Let's chase it as soon as we can.
Yeah, that is awesome. What do you think? How do you think the Dogs are going to go this year and in the near future?
Well, I think they've got a very good squad, but you know, but we know what we do with paper. I think if they get a bit of run, a bit of luck with injuries, I think the competition is very even. I think it can go down to about number 14, and if you get injuries, it can really hurt you. I think they've got reasonable depth. They have a bit of luck, probably tweak a few things the way they've been doing, you know, a bit of the game plan and a bit of the structure a little bit. I think they can really be a force, and I can just see a couple of teams up the top that are above the rest, just above. The rest from there is open slather. So, no, they could finish top 4 if they get everything right, but certainly, you know, let's hope they make the finals.
Music to our ears, Rocket.
To all the supporters, stick fat. You know, obviously be passionate. Don't be patient. Let's chase it, and let's get back to being number 1.
Thank you so much from the bottom of our heart. We absolutely loved your journey and your ride as a coach. You know, you took us almost to the pinnacle, but the memories and you know, the amazing stories will endure always, and we're so grateful for that. Thank you for joining us on Inside the Kennel, and we hope to see you in the stands at the Doggies.
Thanks very much, mate.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, Rodney Eade.
In my heart, white in my veins, blue in my eye, red, white, and blue in my brain. I'm Bulldog born.